Bosco Bites, brought to you from Don Bosco Youth Services, Episode 1, Part 7. Don Bosco meets Charles Gastini, a young boy at a barber's shop. The year is 1843. Don Bosco is a young priest at the Convento of St. Francis. One Saturday afternoon, Don Bosco entered a barber's shop to get himself a shave. Besides the owner in the shop, there was only Charles Gastini, a young apprentice getting used to the tools of the trade. The only task entrusted to him was to soap and lather all those who came through that door of the shop for a shave. But Don Bosco, who thought the boy would like the festive oratory, wanted to make friends with him. And so Don Bosco began, "Hey, what's your name?" "Charles Gastini," he said. "And do you have your parents?" "I only have my mother." "How old are you?" "I'm 11. "Have you made your first Holy Communion?" "Not yet." "Do you attend catechism classes?" "On some days when it is possible." "Good," said Don Bosco, "and now as payment you may shave me." "Good Lord!" The proprietor, who overheard the two of them talking, came up quickly. "You don't want to risk your face with this youngster. He barely knows anything." "Oh, don't bother," replied Don Bosco. "If the boy is not tested, he will never learn." "I beg your pardon, Father. The test? If there needs to be someone who could be tested, it could be anybody else, but not the face of a priest." "That's wonderful. Is my beard more precious than that of anyone else?" "The boy knows very well how to shave the bark of a tree." Don Bosco escaped from the instruments like Saint Bartholomew escaped from his persecutors, said Father John Baptist Francesia when writing later on in a book in 1908. At the end of the ordeal, Don Bosco told the boy, "There, it was not so bad. A few more times and you'll become a professional." He then invited him to the oratory the following Sunday. Charles promised, and he kept his word. The following Sunday he came to the festive oratory. He played games. He had such a good time with boys of his own age. And when the games ended, Don Bosco took him to the sacristy door and prepared him to make his confession. And Charles did make a good confession. In the biographical memoirs of Don Bosco we read, he was so overjoyed that he abruptly began to weep and weep and weep. From that day, the oratory became young Charles's most preferred environment. At the oratory, he received some moral sense. A fact demonstrates it. At the barber's, he heard a client using some indecent language, and Charles, young as he was, immediately interrupted. "Are you not ashamed to use such language in the presence of a young boy?" A few months after his first meeting with Don Bosco, Charles lost his mother too. His elder brother was a soldier, and now he was thrown out of his lodging by the landlord. He was sent literally back to the streets because his mother, during her illness, was not able to pay the lease. Charles came the following morning to Don Bosco, and he told him his story. Don Bosco took his little hand in his and said, "You come with me. I am a poor priest, but even if I have only a piece of bread, I will share it with you." Many felt that this was the turning point in Charles Gastini's life. It was a concrete sign of the tenderness in the heart of that priest. That was how Don Bosco became the sure anchor for so many youngsters like Charles Gastini, who could look up to Don Bosco and find in him the father they never had, the only friend they relied on, and now the only father they could trust in any difficulty. Young Charles understood this. He pinned all his hopes on Don Bosco, and even when the clouds of discouragement darkened his horizon, Don Bosco put hope back into his life. The study of religion didn't interest him, and neither did he like to make his confession. "Charles, are you coming to have a chat with me?" Don Bosco would often say. And Charles would often say, I'll come tomorrow, surely." Charles promised, but then it never materialized. But Don Bosco patiently waited. One day, Don Bosco changed his strategy. He wrote on the back of a ticket, "Charles, if you were to die tonight, where will your soul go?" He then slipped it under the lad's pillow. After night prayers, Charles went up to the dormitory to prepare for bed. And as he lifted up his pillow, the ticket fell out. He picked it up and read it and immediately understood what it meant. He burst into tears and, racing out of the dormitory, he ran to Don Bosco's room. He knocked. The door opened. "You? What do you want?" asked Don Bosco. The little child said, "I want to make my confession. I need to, and I need to now." Later, Charles confided to his friend John Baptist Francesca. After that, there were very few things that disturbed him. He could lie down and sleep in such peace. From that moment, Charles became a lot more serious. He applied himself to his studies. Don Bosco helped him, and so did his companions. His grades slowly began to improve. The journey of Gastini was only just beginning. In 1851, he became a cleric. He began by being appointed to assist the boys during the day and during the night. He even entertained them in the boarding school. But in the spring of 1854, Charles was involved in a regrettable act. The register of his behavior read, "On the evening of May 7th, Viale, Olivero, Luciano and Gastini, without permission, left the oratory while everybody was already in bed." Together with 3 other companions, Charles was in serious trouble. It seemed that this was a sign that those lads were not meant to be there. The following year, he gave up the clerical habit and left the oratory. He came here on his own and he left on his own. That was what Don Bosco wrote beside the name of Charles Gastini on the Scholastic Register 1855-56. But the seed that Don Bosco had sown in the soul of Gastini was not lost. Charles would always remain a dear friend and a collaborator and participate in the many initiatives of the House of Valdoco. Whenever there were feasts and games, Gastini was always the captain of the ex-students team. He sang, he recited poems in the Piedmontese dialect. He was quite a comedian and performed many comic parts in plays put up in the oratory, including in many operettas. Whenever he was only a spectator, he made it a point to put something into the general contribution for the upkeep of the oratory. He once told a benefactor whom he introduced to Don Bosco, "I belong to Don Bosco, and all that I have is not mine, but his." Don Bosco would also foretell something about Gastini. The young Gastini was bold enough once to ask Don Bosco how long would he live. Don Bosco looked at him and he said, "You live to be 70. This is recorded in the biographical memoirs Volume 6. In fact, he died in 1901 on the day following his 70th birthday. A very simple story. Let's rewind to those beautiful words that Don Bosco wrote on a ticket and placed it under his pillow. Charles, if you were to die tonight, where would your soul go? That was the only strategy that succeeded in moving the boy from his stationary stance. For Don Bosco, the salvation of the soul had a particular importance. There were numerous phrases and sentences in his writings and countless episodes that confirm this fact. During a good night on February 13, 1865, Don Bosco spoke to his boys for the very first time about thefts, indiscipline that had taken place in the house and other things, and then he said, "I have resolved to take severe action against the perpetrators of these scandals." Don Bosco is the gentlest of men. Disturb or destroy something, cause some disorder and mischief, and you will be sorry. But when you turn and ruin a soul, then Don Bosco becomes inexorable. To those who knew the tender love with which Don Bosco treated his boys, the term father and teacher of the young resonated with them. But his capacity to be intolerable also was a point to consider. Often, when Don Bosco met an ex-student of the oratory who he hadn't seen for a very long time, he would ask, "And your soul, how is it?" Even though he was preoccupied about the state of our souls, he taught us to undertake the task of saving our own souls. It was also important to help others to save theirs. It is a work of charity to save the soul of another. As a first suggestion to St. Dominic Xavier, he recommended that he save his soul. He added, "There is nothing greater in the world than saving one's soul." My dear friends, my dear benefactors, my dear past pupils, here is a beautiful example of a past pupil. You celebrate 150 years of your past pupil federation. Charles Gastini was a very beautiful example of a past pupil who stayed with Don Bosco. No doubt he had a difficult moment, he left, but he came back. And he would say those beautiful words, "Everything that I have does not belong to me, it belongs to him," to Don Bosco. Who of us would give our heads to be shaved by an apprentice? But this is what Don Bosco did. Don Bosco took the first move, the first initiative. He would get into the life of the youngster, even being ready to make a fool of himself, even if the hair on his head was not well cut. But Don Bosco would say, "Over time, you'll become a professional." Wow, that's the way. It's so difficult for us to be like Don Bosco's today. It's so difficult for us to enter into the lives of the youngsters, to give them a chance, to give them another chance, to give them 100 chances to overcome their difficulties, their challenges, to help them to study, to help them to make a future, but above all, to save one's soul. This was Don Bosco's one purpose, and this was his motto, "Da mihi animas cetera tolli." Take away all the rest, but give me your soul. We pray, my dear friends, that each one of us may walk into the lives of the other to challenge them to save their soul, to have higher things to live for. And this is the Don Bosco way. May God bless you.